And we're now going to go to our testifiers, and I'm just going to read off the first three so that numbers 2 and 3 can know that they're up on deck in that order. So our first testifier is Ari Hoffnung, the former New York City Deputy Controller for Budget and Public Affairs, and who had written a really excellent report on regulating and taxing marijuana and its impact on New York City. He'll be followed by Gabriel Saig from Drug Policy Alliance, and then Patricia Moore from the Center on Community Alternative. Good morning, Ari.
Good morning. Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Assemblyman, for introducing the Marijuana Tax and Regulation Act and the respective legislative bodies, and for convening today's public forum on this important issue. My name is Ari Hoffnung, and I'm honored to offer testimony on the fiscal impact of this legislation. Before I begin, I want to share a word or two on my professional background. I most recently served as New York City's Deputy Controller for Budget and Public Affairs. In this capacity, I helped oversee the city's $70 billion annual budget with the help of a talented team of economists, budget analysts, and financial experts. Prior to that, I was a managing director at Bear Stearns, where I worked for more than a decade managing the firm's risk reporting and enforcing credit policies. I also hold an MBA from New York University's Stern School of Business. The purpose of my testimony today is to provide a fiscal impact estimate of this bill and to discuss the economic implications of the bill's key tax provisions. I believe that my estimates are conservative and objective in nature. My fiscal impact estimate has been informed in part based on research conducted last summer by the New York City Controller's Office. It can be found in this report titled Regulating and Taxing Marijuana, the Fiscal Impact in New York City, published by the office in August of 2013. The report found that legalizing, regulating, and taxing marijuana would have a positive direct fiscal impact of $431 million annually. $400 million will result from increased tax revenues to the city, and $31 million will come from cost savings. Using a financial model similar to the one developed to estimate the fiscal impact of legalization on the city, and making the appropriate adjustments for a statewide analysis, I estimate the positive fiscal impact of this bill to be approximately $1.8 billion. My model takes into account the direct benefits totaling $764 million a year, along with the indirect benefits exceeding $1 billion a year. The following methodology was used to derive the direct benefits estimate of $764 million, using data from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Service Administration, which estimates that 12.2% of New York State residents used marijuana in the past year. Assuming there are approximately 15 million adult New Yorkers, gets an estimate of 2 million marijuana consumers. To that, we add the impact of commuters, tourists, and other out-of-state visitors, and we have a marijuana consumer market of slightly above 2 million individuals. The next variable that we need to estimate is the average annual consumption per year per marijuana consumer. Here we assumed 5 ounces per year per consumer, and this was derived in part based on estimates made by the state of Colorado and Washington when planning for legalization. Multiplying our 2 million marijuana consumer market by 5 ounces provides us with the 10 million ounces a year number for the New York State market. Levying the bill's proposed tax of $50 per ounce of marijuana and $50 per 1/4 ounce on concentrated cannabis, we would then generate estimated tax revenues of more than $651 million a year. This number doesn't account for the additional sales tax revenues that the state would realize under the bill. Assuming a post-legalization pre-tax price of $280 per ounce, I estimate the state would collect more than $112 million a year in revenues at the current 4% sales tax rate. These numbers together yield $764 million of annual tax revenues. This is only the direct tax revenue impact to the state. There's also the indirect revenue impact to the state of approximately $1 billion. Here's how I got that number. First, the bill would allow localities to impose an additional 5% sales tax above and beyond their current levels. Assuming an average local tax rate of 4%, and this 5% add-on would yield more than $250 million a year in local tax revenues. While these revenues do not accrue directly to the states, to New York State, the finances of localities are deeply intertwined with those of the states and should be taken into account to draw a more accurate picture of the bill's fiscal impact. Another revenue generator would be the creation of new jobs throughout New York State as a result of legalizing marijuana. It is reasonable to assume that under this bill, a wide array of industries would benefit from job growth, including construction, agriculture, retail, and hospitality. Early estimates from Colorado indicate that more than 10,000 new jobs have been created to support the marijuana industry. While New York State's population is approximately 4 times the size of that of Colorado, I chose to conservatively assume 25,000 new jobs would be created in our state. Using average weekly wage data from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, New York, New Jersey Information Office, I assumed an annual salary of $58,000 per employee. This would yield an additional, at current tax rate, $75 million in personal income taxes for the state. On the cost savings side, I believe many people here are familiar with Harvard professor Marone's work, which estimated in 2005 cost savings of $565 million from legalization. A similar report published last year by the ACLU estimated a range of $229 million to $1.1 billion. For purposes of my estimate, I assumed the midpoint of the ACLU's range of $678 million. Because it was based on more recent data and largely followed the widely accepted methodology employed by Professor Marone and endorsed by more than 500 leading economists and 3 Nobel laureates. Adding the direct benefits estimate of $764 million to the indirect benefits of more than $1 billion provides an all-in fiscal impact of approximately $1.8 billion. I want to reemphasize the fact that this number is an estimate, and this bill can certainly benefit from a more thorough fiscal analysis. It is my hope that this preliminary estimate will serve as an instructive starting point for other researchers, analysts, and advocates seeking to conduct a more comprehensive and detailed fiscal analysis of the bill. I'd also like to suggest one way this already strong and thoughtful bill can be improved upon. The bill currently proposes a unit-based tax of $50 per ounce. Ad valorem, or value-based tax, is generally preferable to a unit-based tax, as changes in the price over time could render a unit tax too high or too low. For example, adding a $50 tax to an ounce of marijuana with a pre-tax price of $300 would increase the price by 17%. On the other hand, adding a $50 tax to an ounce that would otherwise retail for $150 would increase the price by more than 53%. The more the average pre-tax price of marijuana decreases, the higher the $50 per ounce tax would be on a percentage basis. This would create greater economic incentives for an underground market this legislation seeks to curtail. I suspect this is one of the reasons the states of Colorado and Washington are choosing value-based taxes rather than unit-based taxes for marijuana. In closing, while I do support this bill, I do not support it solely on fiscal grounds. In fact, I would support this bill even if it were revenue neutral, because it would eliminate the unnecessary unit costs of marijuana prohibition in the form of arrest that disproportionately impact our Black and Latino communities. Moreover, this bill would finally end decades of senseless policies that criminalize the harmless recreational choices of more than 2 million otherwise law-abiding New Yorkers. Thank you again for all your work on this important issue and allowing me to share my thoughts on the economic and fiscal impacts of this bill. As I said earlier, I believe the fiscal impact of this bill to be in the $1.8 billion range. Needless to say, I stand ready to assist you and other members of the State Senate and Assembly in any way possible on this matter. And just want to point out the irony that behind where the elected officials are sitting is a beautiful picture of Times Square, I believe, right above the Statue of Liberty, and we see an advertisement for whiskey and Coca-Cola there, which contain alcohol and caffeine, which are also drugs. Again, thank you for the opportunity and for all the great work that you're doing.
Thank you very much. That was very informative. So do you have any questions?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much. I apologize for needing to run out for a minute, but when you receive a call from your local district attorney, you need to go return it right away. It was a good call, though, by the way. You mentioned the economic impact on industries of New York State. And, you know, I'm not sure most people know, but agriculture is one of the largest industries in New York State.
That's right.
So I'm wondering if you had any specificity on what that impact would be, if there has been any communication with anyone from the Agricultural Association and or that industry.
No, that is certainly an excellent question and an area of interesting further research. Marijuana, as you know, could be grown in multiple different environments. It could be grown indoors, it could be grown in greenhouses, it could be grown outdoors, although that's not particularly feasible for most seasons in New York. It's reasonable to assume that you would see large commercial greenhouses. Right now, if you look at the state of New York, you'll see that there are over 100 B6 commercial greenhouses, which are commercial greenhouses in excess of 20,000 square feet, none of which are located in New York City. They are located, some of which are located close to here, some are located in the Buffalo area, others are located in Long Island, and it's reasonable to assume that you would see a proliferation of commercial greenhouses in New York State, which we already have deep expertise in from an agricultural perspective.
Thank you. And the estimate that you had for the additional opportunity for income taxes is based on both the creation of the industry and its longevity, or is it just based on the first year of implementation?
So the jobs is something that would also benefit from a deeper fiscal analysis, but I believe that to be on an ongoing basis. I mean, we have to understand that, and I've spoken to folks from Colorado and the Enforcement Division. Washington isn't there yet. They're almost there yet. Colorado's only in the first few months. So they do not believe right now that the numbers coming out of the state of Colorado, the revenues coming out, are their peak numbers. They are still in what they call the ramp-up period. So I believe that 25,000 new jobs estimate is a conservative estimate and doesn't really try to take into account in any thoughtful way what would be done from additional tax revenues. And for example, in Colorado, I believe they're building schools. You build schools, you hire construction workers. You hire construction workers with more jobs. But I believe 25,000 to be a conservative estimate.
Thank you.
Questions?
Just a question. Just Ari, I know you're a Bronx resident, and I'm truly
Grandma.
yes, but I appreciate you being here because I know that living in the Bronx, I know you've been an advocate in the Bronx for many years, and seeing your report, see how it outlines how it disproportionately impacts, especially kids in the Bronx.
Yes.
I appreciate your report and you coming here and testifying.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I also first want to thank you. I think it is, when you did the original report and then being here today, helping us understand from a statewide perspective, the money savings on the criminal justice side and the revenue generation from creating a new legal economic activity. I have to say, I'm up here in Albany and everybody always talks about how they can create all this new revenue and job creation. But thanks to your work, it gives us the ability to say, no, actually, this is a change that could be made that is not radical because other states are already doing it, that would save us hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in our criminal justice costs and turn that money around to be available for other important things while generating new money. Frankly, in the agricultural sector upstate, that is literally starved for new economic activity. So I do find it to be such a win-win, and there's very few people who could come before us today and give such scientifically based economic analysis, justification for this. We debated whether we should do the $50 per ounce or a percentage formula, and so we ended up with the $50 an ounce, but I'm very open to exploring the alternative. One concern was if you price marijuana on the legal market too high, you actually encourage a secondary illegal market. And I think your testimony actually makes the argument that if it's a percentage, you're less likely to have that happen?
Yes, so for example, let's take a step back for a moment. There's no way to predict what the price of marijuana is going to be in 5, 10 years from now, right? The prices prevailing now, particularly outside of Colorado and Washington, have a huge risk premium built into it, and are also being grown and produced in very inefficient manners because it's illegal. Once it becomes legal, you give rise to people who can innovate in the agricultural field and other fields and make it a lot more efficient. So say, and this is pure speculation on my part, just say theoretically that you're dealing with, in 10 years from now, price of marijuana at $100 per ounce because of technological innovation and other advances and efficiencies. A $50 per ounce tax would be huge, and I would be shocked if that didn't lend itself to the reemergence of another black market, an underground market. I sat in a room about a year ago with a team of economists also debating, should it be per unit or should it be per value? And the economists drilled into my head that while reasonable people can certainly disagree, it is safer, since you can't predict the future, to do a percentage-based tax. And in fact, Colorado and Washington State chose a percentage-based tax. Now, when you go through tax revenue estimates, all things being equal from the state's revenue perspective, you want to raise as much revenue as possible. But the balancing act is you don't want to create a black market. You need to figure out where that is. I'm not prepared to suggest a specific percentage here. I think that is a very tough thing to do. You can look to other states for guidance, but as a theory, I would be more comfortable with percentage-based tax.
Thank you. I think we all want to thank you very much for your testimony today. It was very helpful and very valuable. And our